More refugee families from Afghanistan arrived in Vermont this week. We now have a total of about 60. We expect 230 by next spring, resettling far from the Taliban, which in August, you'll remember, took control of their country once again. It's, of course, quite an adjustment, as we hear from State Refugee Director Tracy Dolan. Joining us this morning, Tracy Dolan, the director of the State Refugee Office for the state of Vermont. Welcome back to NBC5 In Depth.
Thanks, I'm glad to be here.
You've had another big week. The refugees from Afghanistan keep coming.
They sure do. Just in the last couple of days, we've had a few bigger families arrive, and we're up to, as of this week, about 60 Afghan arrivals.
Where are they resettling? I guess they're all going to be living with host families initially?
Most will live with host families initially. Ideally, when they arrive, we're able to move them right into an apartment. That's usually what happens with refugee resettlement. You can get a place ahead of time, in part because they're coming quickly and a lot of them at once, and in part because housing's tight. We are really taking advantage of the generosity of host families right now who are taking them in while we look for housing.
Are there advantages to living, at least initially, with a host family in terms of acclimation? And
that's an interesting question, and it's one that we talk about a lot. The advantage on the one hand is, being able to arrive in a family and people are able to help you with cooking and everything's there and ready for you. But also keep in mind that these families are coming from a highly stressful situation where they haven't had much privacy for a long time. On those military bases, there's very little privacy, very little time to be alone and talk. And there is a lot of stress every day working in a different language. And so it can be stressful too. So I would say it's both, but we're hearing overwhelmingly that the host families and the Afghan families are really pleased to be together.
Are they mostly families? My understanding was that there are some individual men who were helpful to American forces in Afghanistan, and they're part of the mix.
Yes, we have some single men, and by single men we mean they're arriving as singles. They may still have families back at home that haven't been able to get here yet, and we have some families. But of the 60 so far, the vast majority of those numbers are families, but we certainly have, maybe up to 10 single men among that 60 as well.
So we had heard to this point that most of the Afghan refugees would be settling in Chittenden County or maybe with spillover into Washington County, and then in Windham County, the two areas of the state that have those refugee resettlement groups. Is that what you still expect, or does housing really dictate where they go?
Housing in part dictates where they go. So we have two resettlement agencies in Vermont. We have USCRI, which is based in Chittenden, and we have ECDC, which is a multicultural center. It's new and it's up in Brattleboro. Right now, our Afghan arrivals are arriving here in Chittenden. So we're going to be mostly placing them in Chittenden, but also Washington County and Rutland. We have USCRI has a community partner employee out in Rutland working with landlords there. The municipal offices and the community's been very supportive. So it's likely we will also settle some in Rutland. So for this area, Chittenden, Washington County, and Rutland will be the main areas. Once Brattleboro starts receiving Afghans, probably in December, we're going to see numbers go up there as well.
Okay, so how much English do they know, which is, generally speaking, do at least some members of each family speak some English?
Probably some members speak some English. In some cases, they may be quite fluent because, again, some of these folks were working with their military forces, maybe even as interpreters. So in some cases, they may even be very highly skilled. They may be engineers, and they also may have strong English skills. And in some cases, they may have spouses or children who don't know any English. So it's a real mix.
And they're all real concerned about conditions back home.
They really are. Their number one priority when they get here, besides being very thankful, they are happy. Even though they're tired when they arrive, they're happy. but their number one concern is being able to figure out how to contact folks back home, especially those who have some immediate family members back at home. So some of the folks arriving here who may have wife and kids back home or parents back home who may be on a target list of the Taliban because they are connected and because they did help with the U.S. military forces or with other U.S. organizations back in Afghanistan.
So, I mean, what's the risk? When we were speaking earlier, you said that the Taliban is actively monitoring communication channels.
We know that they are actively monitoring. And so the State Department is giving guidance that if you are communicating, communicate through these types of mechanisms, be very aware, because the Taliban is certainly monitoring. We know that they do have names. We don't know all the details, but we know that some people are certainly being harassed. We know some people back in Afghanistan are on the run. A lot of people did not get humanitarian parole status and were not able to get out, did not get a special immigrant visa. And those folks are still there. And that's very difficult. And we don't know the timeline upon which they may have an opportunity to leave anytime soon.
Can't imagine. Now, we all remember that airlift that unfolded rather chaotically from the Kabul airport back in August. Did all of these folks escape there? I mean, were these folks part of that melee?
We don't know specifically if the folks that arrived here in Vermont were part of that particular airlift, but we certainly know that some people coming here were part of those airlifts early on. Some of them may have been moved out a couple of weeks later. We do know, and I know that when people look at that, they wonder about, well, that happened so quickly, what do we know about these folks? And we know that there's been significant security vetting. That's one of the reasons it's taken them so long to get off those military bases and into our communities. Homeland Security is double, triple checking all of their databases and their sources. We also know that we are doing a really good job with health screening out there. So there was a very small measles outbreak. And Health and Human Services got on top of that. So they've been all vaccinated for measles. They've been vaccinated for COVID. And so they're arriving here with significant protection. And then once they get here, they also receive another domestic health screening when they arrive.
That's great. And they're all eligible to work.
They are. They get an authorization to work. And they should have that paperwork either when they arrive or soon after. And they're very eager to work. It's really one of the first questions they have out on those military bases, what kind of jobs are there available? And we're hearing wonderful things from employers here in Vermont. As you know, there is a vacancy rate and people are looking for employees. And some of the companies that have been working with refugees historically have great experiences. And so we're getting a lot of calls from employers saying, I have openings. I may even have housing or transportation. How do I get an opportunity to employ some of these newcomers?
And they come with a range of skills, you were saying. Some are professionals.
Some of them may be professionals. We had one arrive with a medical background, and so appears to be getting slotted into a position in the medical field. We have some coming in with engineering backgrounds or with interpretation backgrounds, and then some of them may be lower skill labor or their spouses may be. And so we have a real range, and some may be getting entry-level positions. And again, there's a real need in Vermont, and they're trying to fill those jobs. So this is a great opportunity for the Afghans, of course, to have a safe, healthy place to live, but also for Vermont to receive them, to learn, about their culture, but also to get an expanded workforce at a time when we really need it.
Oh, we sure do. Tracy, how can our communities help? What do you need, if anything?
Sure, that's a great question. The first way to help is to just really be positive and open about this experience. We want folks to feel welcome. And so some of it is just how we reflect upon new people coming in, asking people to really put their best foot forward in terms of that type of thinking and behavior. In terms of material needs, as you know, probably from what you've heard here in Vermont, housing is a little tight. We are finding some long-term housing, but it is a little tighter than most years. So anyone who has housing available, I would just urge them to put it on the market generally. There are needs for other Vermonters as well, not just for our new arrivals and refugees. But if specifically you have some housing available that you're interested in offering up for refugee families, you can reach out to USCRI here in Chittenden County. That's USCRIVT at volunteer.org. You can offer up housing. Also, cash donations are always helpful, gift cards. There is a lot of donations coming in, but the cash really allows for a lot of flexibility if there's a specific need. We've also gotten great support from the Islamic Society. So these are primarily Islamic families showing up, and the Islamic Society at sometimes even going out to the airport at night to greet people and making sure that they've got appropriate food, halal food, and going shopping for them in advance and paying out of their own pockets. So a lot of wonderful generous donations, but certainly I know USCRI and then later ECDC up in Brattleboro could really use continued donations because the needs will be high for a while.
What a story, which will continue to follow. Tracy Dolan, Director of the Vermont State Refugee Office, thank you for being with us here on NBC5 In Depth.
Thank you very much.